Khayelihle, good to have you on the program. Mozambique and South Africa do treasure these bilateral ties. Why are they so key?
Well, thank you so much indeed, Peter, for having me. So it's quite a range of things, really. Look at the historical bonds between South Africa and Mozambique, dating back really to the days of the struggle. But now, the main focus is around economic cooperation. As you know, that over 300 South African companies are based in Mozambique. You look at areas like hospitality, you look at the banking sector, F&B, among others. So now, the key focus especially is around economic recovery, given the very severe impact of COVID-19. A number of economies were affected by these. And in fact, it's quite interesting, Minister, Peter, listening to the ministers really talking about the very impact where a lot of things have just been virtual as opposed to physical encounter. So there was quite a very important moment where they're saying it's really unprecedented that today they're having such an opportunity. But apart from that, Peter, there's a cultural affinity between these two neighbors. I mean, you look at the area like Nyusi, where there's a crash site where the founding father of Mozambique, Ramaphosa, died, and also in Pretoria, in Mozambique, there's also a site where some South African freedom fighters have been honored. Really talk about the very linkages between these two neighbors.
And talking about these linkages, particularly when it comes to security, Cabo Delgado province, currently a Sadaq mission is deployed there to deal with terrorism. That must be a top agenda item.
Well, very much so, Peter, because we know that South Africa is part of the Sadaq mission that's deployed in Cabo Delgado. So it is a big issue for the region. And South Africa's International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Lady Pandey, made it very clear and stated in the uncertain terms that in the region it's a commitment to make sure that we are stamping up and dealing with these cases of terror attacks. Given because for some time that has always been seen as that part of the continent where there's peace and harmony as a focus of issues, and really talking about the significance of making sure that they do support these troops, especially because this is a very interesting mission, Peter. It's not like any other one where it's a UN-led country that pump resources. So it's got a very comprehensive and a very extensive mission. Other countries like Lesotho, for example, have raised concerns about sustaining this project. But what is important about Cabo Delgado also is the issue now of reconstruction. And how will the Sadaq region be able to sustain their mission in terms of dealing with this particular phenomenon?
Yeah, and Cabo Delgado also a center for energy as a resource. Another issue that's critical for both countries. It sounds as if there's quite a number of agreements, I think well over 60 in terms of this area.
Well, very much so, Peter, because when you look at Cabo Delgado itself, there was a point where projections were made that it's worth over billions of US dollars in terms of the gas, the reserves that are located in that part of Mozambique. And coincidentally, it's an area where Mozambique is President Nyusi from. And there was a point where he took President Ramaphosa in his capacity as the Sadaq chair responsible for defense, politics, and security cooperation, where he said, "Welcome to Mweda, this is my hometown," and it was quite a very interesting sight. But also just apart from these issues, Peter, you know that South Africa, for example, and Mozambique were one of those 33 members of the United Nations who abstained at the UN General Assembly. A very key resolution that was mainly presented by the Western nations. So once again, there was a very clear amplification of this issue. And just a short while ago, President Ramaphosa had a telephonic conversation with his Russian counterpart, President Putin, and really looking at this issue, getting clarity around Donbas. To know the eastern part of Ukraine has always been a major concern, but also just getting a clarity between Maputo and Pretoria, how they're calling for these dialogues between Ukraine and Russia, so that these two countries can find some sort of a solution.
All right, so a lot's been happening in the lead up to the President's meeting tomorrow. Naledi Pandor met with her counterpart. Take us through these pre-meetings and how it will lead up to the meeting between President Ramaphosa and Filipe Nyusi.
Well, that's right, Peter. So these are regular sessions where you get, first of all, the senior officials will meet and flesh out the agenda. And those are very key areas of cooperation. And currently, when you look at the binational division between South Africa and Mozambique, they have over 70 agreements. And obviously, a lot of them, they range around economic development. You look at diplomacy, you look at many other aspects as well. But in the main, tomorrow is going to be a combination point, because now the principals of the ministers now will be meeting. So President Ramaphosa will be meeting with President Nyusi. So it's going to be really interesting, because the two leaders will now be sort of really augmented, revitalizing, reviewing, and making sure that all the outstanding issues are being looked upon. One of the critical areas, Peter, that is being really looked at is around immigration between South Africa and Mozambique. You know that the Bombo border post is a very key point of entry between the two nations. When I spoke to the Minister of Home Affairs, it was a very clear goal of really making sure that they try to make the border point at least a 24-hour operation center, because you know that with the Maputo corridor project, a lot of goods will be not able to cross it efficiently as the two countries want, because essentially there's quite a lot of bottlenecks because the borders were closed. So it's one of the areas that the participants will be looking at.
All right. I think as we started this conversation, you were talking about the relationship that Mozambique and South Africa have enjoyed over the years. And I guess when the presidents come together, that really is going to be another thing that they try and cement.
Very much so, Peter, because, I mean, when you look at, for example, I mean, President Nyusi has been to South Africa on numerous occasions, just like his counterpart, President Ramaphosa. Recently, there was a 53rd anniversary of the commemoration of the founding year of Frelimo, Edward Montane. So President Ramaphosa really went to Mozambique, really just to show that these two countries are very important neighbors. And once again, tomorrow will be a very clear indication of really trying to emphasize the point that Pretoria and Maputo have quite a lot in common in terms of dealing now with the economic recovery, with the impact of COVID-19. But apart from that, you know that there's quite a lot of socio-economic challenges, especially when you look at the economy and when you look at now the post-conflict reconstruction in Cabo Delgado. How will South Africa be able to assist in terms of the expertise? But also, at this point in time, what is a great deal of concern for the Mozambican authorities is around the trade issue. South Africa currently, when you look at trade volumes, has traded up 64 billion worth of goods to Mozambique, and that really pales in comparison to what Mozambique has been able to offer to South Africa. It ranges about 11 billion rand, and you look at main issues around the minerals. You look at the likes of Khayelihle, the energy, the hydroelectricity dam. It has always been very key in South Africa, notwithstanding the challenges that we still do have around energy. And I spoke to the High Commissioner of South Africa in Mozambique, and he made it clear that energy is not just for the two countries. It's a very important issue that will really just push the economies and really be able to really just revitalize and be able to make these two economies quite important, given the very strategic nature of how the energy is.
Khayelihle, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. That's Khayelihle Khumalo, who really has been on top of international stories, particularly on the continent, since joining us.